presented by Prize Picks. Get $50 instantly when you play your first 5 and use the promo code WELCOME to Light Years. Tommy, we're doing something a little different this week. All-Star Week, pre-recording these. But, we'll be back Friday night when the games come back. Honestly, this might be the most optimistic I've been about the Warriors in 3 years at this point. I'm pretty excited for the second half stretch run. I know you are as well. We're excited to kind of go on this run with everyone who listens, everyone who interacts. Actually, I want to ask you that. Scale of 1 to 10, 10 being 2017 greatest team of all time. No one can say fucking shit to me. Optimistic. Where are you with the Warriors going into the second half?
I mean, I think
that's a pretty hard 10 to beat.
That's impossible to beat. But I think obviously I was more optimistic when the Jimmy trade happened. Saw 4 games of it. Saw how easily he's kind of like meshing with the team, and he's obviously not even in shape yet. And then you get some stuff over All-Star Weekend with Draymond guaranteeing a championship, and some of that's just Draymond being Draymond. But what that tells me is there is genuine like internal belief within the organization. So that's my long-winded way of saying, I don't know, 7.5, 8. Like I'm very, very optimistic. And that doesn't mean they're going to win a championship. But I think in terms of like the last time I was this optimistic, it's coming off of the 22 championship. Coming into that next season. And obviously that season started kind of weird, but yeah, I just can't remember the last time.
Well, my optimism changed when it got weird, but I was optimistic going into the
100. Yeah, the vibes were immaculate, and then they weren't. But yeah, I'm incredibly confident, and I think having this, even though Steph had to play over the weekend, whatever, like they've essentially had a week off. Like they get to rest their bodies. They are a little bit of an older team at the end of the day. At least their main guys are older, so this rest is really necessary for this stretch run. But I mean, I honestly, given the context of everything that's happened, I couldn't be more optimistic.
Yeah, I was gonna say 7, and I thought that was on the high end. But look, man, Jimmy's been a Warrior for 4 games. With the All-Star break, he'll have been a Warrior 2 weeks by the time they start playing games again. It's still an integration process, but just seeing the way the energy around this team shifted. Steph and Draymond are telling you without telling you. Although, honestly, they're kind of not even hiding it. Like, this is what they wanted. This is what we needed. We needed a guy who can truly be a star, who brings a higher level of IQ, a higher level of competitiveness, is a leader on. It can't just be the two of us. Just someone who brings basically star intangibles, right? And tangibles, to be honest, right? Like bring star qualities to the team, and it got those guys going. It also makes a lot of the other players look good. And the last point I want to bring to it, and this is the other reason I'm super optimistic about it, because look, they do still have holes on the roster. The core is still older. I've watched a lot of NBA this year. I'm not super impressed with any other team. They're not running into the 2017 Warriors. They're not there are good teams. Will they be? Would the Warriors be like favored over all teams? Of course not. But I don't see any juggernauts out there. I know OKC's record is incredible. I know Boston won a title last year. If you just ask me right now, I'd say Boston's far scarier than OKC to me. But Adam Silver's NBA. We get bad all-star, weird all-star games, gimmicky shit, and parity. We'll put the first thing to the side. The first thing doesn't matter. The second thing's more interesting. The second thing is like we've seen it now 2 years in a row. Dallas made moves at the deadline, ran to the finals. Lakers made moves at the deadline, ran to the conference finals. Like this is, and both those teams were in the same position the Warriors were pre-trade, to be clear. This is not like a dynastic era of the NBA. And that's what makes me so excited about this, because I think these guys have a puncher's chance. And if they have a puncher's chance with belief, with the type of experience that they've shown, I mean, that they just have, like, you think any of the young teams at the top of the playoffs wants to see the Warriors if what we saw the first 4 games of the Jimmy experience? is real, like if this keeps building on it, do you think any of the young teams want anything to do with those guys?
I mean, absolutely not. And the thing is, like, you already have that kind of institutional knowledge of Steph, Dre, Kerr, and like all that experience, and like obviously 4 championships. And you're adding with Jimmy, probably, and we touched on this a little bit. I think the last time we were on together, probably the guy who's been, I don't know, one of the top 5 playoff performers of the last 5 to 6 years, like genuinely, and like that's no bullshit.
Has anyone? He's been the best player to not win a championship the last 5 years.
Yeah.
Like, you want to say Jokic has been better than him? Like, yes, he has. You know, like Steph in 2022, sure. You know, Giannis in 2021, sure. But that's like what we're talking about. We're talking about Giannis, Jokic, and Steph. You know, those Miami teams are terrible. Here's my other call on them. Miami's not making the playoffs. Done.
No.
Cooked. Love you, Tyler Hero. Nice 3-point, did well in the 3-point contest, but they're cooked. So,
I mean, they're going to have a hard time scoring 100 points a lot of nights. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
At least they got something for Jimmy. It's better than just having him walk in the summer, I guess. But yeah, they're definitely in a little bit of reset mode. But yeah, I mean, like you said, outside of kind of those 3 guys over the last 4 to 5 years, it's been Jimmy. And we've seen Jimmy like stare down Giannis and play better than him in a playoff series. And yeah, it'll be 24 months ago by the 2025 playoffs. But at the same time, he's kind of just been resting for the last 6 months, 7 months.
Miami did us a favor. Like, I'm not going to lie. The way that the entire thing played out delivered the Warriors not just a motivated version of Jimmy, which like better than side quest, emo bangs, whatever the hell, like that sort of stuff. But also like, he played 25 games. Like, he's going to end the season playing 55 games, 50 games. Like, and at his age, like, that does matter. 50-game Jimmy going into the playoffs, substantially better for you than 70 games Jimmy going to the playoffs.
I mean, something that I've kind of argued for a couple years now is that Steph's injury going into the 2022 playoffs was actually kind of a blessing in disguise in a weird way. It gave him, obviously he had to rehab, but it gave his body kind of a month off. So he was probably one of the fresher guys rolling into the playoffs. And now I'm not saying they wouldn't have won if that doesn't happen, but having a month off like that definitely didn't hurt his body, especially he was 33, 34 at the time. So, I mean, you're getting a similar type of thing with Jimmy where and now, like you said, he's motivated and his body's fresh. I don't think there could be a better recipe given their level of talent for trying to win a championship. And at some point, you know what? Their talent might hit a ceiling. The young guys might not be good enough. They might not have enough like true playoff depth, but it's not going to be, I won't go into any matchup, like you said, maybe outside of Boston, because I think Boston, if they can flip the switch, they're going to be pretty damn tough to beat for anybody, but that's an Eastern Conference team. If we're just talking Western Conference, like there's nobody where I'm like, oh, they put the fear of God in me, besides like maybe Jokic, but at the same time, there's stuff the Warriors can exploit there too. Like obviously Steph is a tough matchup for Jokic as well on the other end of the floor. So yeah, I am as optimistic as I could possibly be given everything that's happened.
If someone is listening to this and has not heard us like all year, like you put what we're saying into context, it probably makes sense. If you're just dropping in, we sound like such fucking assholes talking about what is a 10th place team right now. You know what I mean? Like, but like, look at the standings right here. It is what it is. The Thunder are going to win 60 plus games. And we can say, we don't believe in them and all that stuff, but like the record is what it is. The Grizzlies are probably going to win 55 games at this current pace. And Denver and Houston should hit the 50 plus mark. Denver for sure. After that, I'm looking at this and it really is just kind of a like 47 to 41 wins, depending on how healthy you are down the stretch. Like the Clippers, they've been awesome. Harden and Kawhi healthy now. Like I can see every reason they would win 50 games. I could also see them ending up at 42 games. Like there's a lot of most of these teams, and this is kind of the direction the NBA has gone these years. Like every one of these teams has flaws. Some of them are, health related, like your best players are older. Some of them are, it's just hard to keep your roster together. Like that's kind of the biggest issue these teams run into at this point. And it's led to like half the league being kind of 45 wins and we'll see, right?
I mean, absolutely. And at the end of the day, like the Clippers, I think, and we'll get into this a little bit later. I think the Clippers will be tough to catch because they have been playing good ball. But at the same time, like you're still relying on Kawhi health to a certain degree to maintain like that 50 plus win level of play.
Sure.
You're still relying on, Harden was very healthy for a lot of his career, but at the same time, like it feels like a soft tissue injury could happen with him at any point. You know what I mean? Because he's already put a lot of miles on this year. He had to carry this team for the first 40 or so games before Kawhi returned. This back half of the season is going to be so interesting. Like the Warriors come out of the break and they open with the Kings and the Mavs right away. So like you're jumping directly back into the glut of the Western Conference, and it's just gonna be interesting to see where it all ends up. But there's going to be. It feels like there's just going to be almost every single day. You're going from 10th to 7th and then back down to 8th and maybe to 9th. It's just going to be a constant like shuffling of the deck for the last 2 months of this season here.
Yeah, and I'll pull this up in a second, but they have the 22nd strength of schedule, so they do have a favorable schedule down the stretch. Some of the teams that they're trying to catch are on the opposite end of the spectrum. They got like top 5 hardest schedules to get to. So like all of that plays into it. We'll get into it in a minute though.
Yeah. All right. Light Years Podcast is brought to you by Prize Picks. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in award winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. So obviously, coming out of All-Star Week, not a lot of games happening right now, but my only advice, second half of the season, Sam and I hit on this a little bit already, I'm taking more on Steph props, on Jimmy props, maybe even on some Dre props coming out of All-Star break here, because I think you're going to see some special stuff for these guys coming out of the All-Star break and going through the end of the season. Prize Picks puts their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my picks hit, I get my money in as quick as 15 minutes. Prize Picks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday. Each Tuesday, Prize Picks discounts select player projections for up to 25% to provide even more value to your lineups. So download the app today and use code LIGHTYEARS to get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. That's $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game.
What'd you think of Draymond? You know what? I'm going to pull it up right now. We'll pull it up. My guy.
We were kind of headed in the wrong direction, thinking we figured it out and never figuring it out this year, throughout the course of this year. And since he's been here, we've walked into every game thinking and believing that we're going to win that game. And that goes a long way in this league. When you walk in the game like, we probably going to lose this game, it's not good. And so he's brought back that belief, and I think we're going to win the championship.
Say that one more time so that everybody here can
say that with your chest.
I didn't hear you. My earpiece.
Because they added Jimmy Butler the third. So what did you say?
81?
I'm sorry. I said I think we're going to win a championship, but I lied. We are going to win the championship.
What a showman. What a showman. That's my guy. What do you think when you saw him say this?
I mean, I wasn't surprised. It's Draymond at the end of the day, So like nothing that he ever
did you shotgun a beer where you're like, fuck yeah?
I was definitely out and about when I saw this. I considered it, but I think I would have gotten kicked out of the bar if I did that. No, but I mean nothing.
Or if it just it's uncouth in a public.
Exactly. Exactly.
Well, okay,
especially at my age. You know what I mean? I can't be doing stuff like that. But I mean nothing that Dre says will ever really surprise me, right? And I mean, again, and he said the word multiple times, and I keep kind of coming back to this because this is something that our guy Jason Timpf over at Hoops Night has hit on. Belief matters so much for star players. Like some of it, obviously you have to have the requisite talent, but having that belief can change everything. And Dre references it multiple times there. He talks about, we believe again, we can do this. We have the right guys. And he goes from, I think we're going to win the championship to guaranteeing it. Some of that is just, playing to the crowd. He's Draymond, like you're trying to get ratings or however you want to say it. But yeah, absolutely. And so, yeah, I mean,
let me ask you this. Do you believe they can win a title this year?
Yes, I do. Absolutely. Woo. Absolutely. And stuff has to break, right? They won't be the favorites by any means, but we kind of just went through it. Who in the West really, really scares you? And then if you do get to the finals somehow, at that point, it's always kind of a toss up. The other team might be better,
Sure.
but you steal one on their home court, and now you got to just win your home games. Like the series get very funky very quickly.
Yeah. I'm buying too. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm looking at this right now and I'm going, I like the way the Warriors match up against 3 of the top 4. I think they match up well with the Thunder. I don't think the Thunder can shoot for shit. I think they're gonna get into a dogfight. Draymond and Jimmy are meant for dogfights. Steph's gonna hit some shots, and I think the experience and just the way that plays out is gonna put a lot of pressure on guys like Lou Dort, Caruso, Kassan Wallace. Like, all right, Jalen Williams, to be honest, are you going to hit shots? Because they're going to pack the paint against you, and they're going to play good interior defense, by the way. The Warriors will play good interior defense with Draymond and Jimmy. And it's going to come down to basically like they're going to dare you to hit enough threes.
And I think something that is like pissed a lot of Warriors fans off, myself included, over the last couple of years, is like their defensive philosophy is always centered around protecting the rim and protecting the paint more than it is like closing out on shooters. And that was a great strategy from 2015 to 2021, 2022. But with the volume that teams launch threes at now, you can look really dumb a lot of nights when you're giving up these open corner threes. You're giving up like these above the break threes. But you get into a series with guys who don't really want to shoot threes. All of a sudden those shots are a little bit harder. Your shoulders are a little bit tighter. There's a little bit more pressure.
It's all about execution, because to me, it's it doesn't matter if you give up 43s. It matters who you're giving up. The 42 now, because everyone's getting 40 up. I'm sorry. They just are. And is it going to be Isaiah Joe in rhythm murdering you on the same like drag screen like he's Steph Curry that you should really know how to guard because you guys run it every game, but you don't? Or is it going to be, Lou Dort catching the ball, hesitating, and him having to put it up because they've taken everything that the Thunder actually want to do away? And I'm just using them as an example, but like, that's kind of what it comes down to. Like, we've watched Warrior games for a decade. When a team mucks up their offense, it's a lot of Draymond having to take bailout shots because the primary action the Warriors want to run has been taken away. So that's like my question with like the Thunder, the Rockets, maybe the Grizzlies to a degree, where it's like they put a lot of guys out there who bring a ton of athleticism and do a ton of things. And I'm not sure how they're going to respond to the pressure of a playoff game where it's like, you just need to drill 3 open shots. Like, you need to be able to hit those shots. And that's traditionally not been your role. And that's kind of honestly what a lot of this devolves down to.
Yeah. I mean, the 3 teams that you just referenced, they still, at this point, because I haven't proven it yet, they still feel like cute story regular season teams, and like all that energy stuff, that athleticism stuff, that's great during the regular season. But do you have like guys who can make plays down the stretch of big games? Do you have guys who can hit shots? And I think part of what helps with bringing Jimmy in is obviously the defensive IQ of the team has just gone up, multiple levels with Jimmy in tow. He's going to be playing 35 to 40 minutes a game in the playoffs. And the only guy I'd really worry about in the rotation right now, like consistently getting lost on off-ball actions, is Kuminga. But the hope is by bringing in Jimmy, obviously along with Draymond, obviously having Looney as well, and having all these smart defenders, you can kind of mask over some of those deficiencies. And then, like you said, you're hoping that you're making the right guys for some of these teams take these open shots. And in that smaller sample, like over the 82 game sample, if you're taking 53s a game and you got good enough shooters doing it and you're generating good looks, you're going to win a lot of games. But in a small 7 game sample, 1 or 2 bad nights and the entire series flips. And that is what I think the Warriors have always kind of banked on going into playoff series. And they'll absolutely do that again, especially against the Thunder, Grizzlies, and the Rockets.
The other thing about those 2 teams is I don't think they have the diversity of offense to come up with, like, you take away the primary action. So like in the Thunder's case, it's like Shea dribble drive to the rim. Honestly, the Warriors might just put Jimmy on him and be like, just don't foul him. Let him do what he wants to do. Just don't foul him. And let's see if he can actually score 60 points. Because he's never done it before. Like that sort of thing is how they're going to cover it. With the Rockets, even more so. They're gonna make those type of bets. But we're getting super ahead of ourselves right now. Like super fucking ahead of ourselves. That's how hyped I am right now. Where you just get excited about how this stretch run could go. That I've already played in my head that they're in the playoffs. It's game 4 of a 2-2 series, and we're getting excited about the potential for an upset. What I wanted to ask you about is who would you say have tangibly better odds than the Warriors right now?
To come out of the West?
Sure.
Thunder, Nuggets, maybe the Lakers, maybe. But I'm still interested to see how that looks post All-Star break. Like, do they have a viable center? Maybe it doesn't matter because they have a big roster overall. But those are really the only 3 teams where I'd be like, genuinely, they have a better chance of making the finals. But at the same time, getting to a series, Warriors definitely have a puncher's chance at very worst.
If the Warriors achieve this ceiling we're talking about, what is the biggest reason?
I think it honestly has to be a Kuminga leap. Because we know who Steph's going to be. We know who Jimmy's going to be. We know who Draymond's going to be. I think we kind of know who Pods and Moody will be in a playoff setting. Like, Moody's already done it in the playoffs a couple times. Like, he came up big his rookie year in the playoffs. And he was good against the Kings a couple years ago. Like, he's shown he can give good minutes in the playoffs. And I think what Pods is doing doesn't feel unsustainable. It's going to be about Kuminga's ability to learn how to play off of Jimmy and obviously off of Steph and Draymond on offense. And then can he get to the right level defensively to where you can play him 35 minutes in a playoff game or 30 minutes in a playoff game? Because they're going to need his size and athleticism.
I would say, honestly, it's still just health for me. It's really just health. Like, are we going to get Jimmy, Draymond, and Steph fully healthy? Or are one of them going to get banged up? Like, that's the biggest thing that's going to be a driver. I agree with you on the Kuminga factor. I think he's the most interesting thing in the second half. And I just, I don't know how much any of it matters if they aren't fully healthy.
Oh, I mean, of course. And that's always the concern when you put together a team like this.
Yeah, cool. Sorry. Brief technical difficulties there, guys, but we are back. We are back, and we need to talk about our friends at Factor.
Yes, we do. All right. Light Years Podcast is brought to you by Factor. Ready to optimize your nutrition this year? Factor has chef-made gourmet meals that make eating well easy. They're dietitian approved and ready to heat and eat in 2 minutes, so you can fuel right and feel great no matter what life throws at you. Factor arrives fresh and fully prepared, perfect for any active, busy lifestyle. Factor can help you feel your best all day long with wholesome smoothies. The smoothies are the absolute best. Breakfast, grab-and-go snacks, and more add-ons. Reach your goals this year with ingredients that you can trust and convenience that can't be beat. Eat smart with Factor. Get started at factormeals.com/lightyears50 off and use code lightyears50 off for 50% off your first box plus free shipping. That's code lightyears50 off at factormeals.com/lightyears50 off to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first Factor box.
Yeah, and before we keep moving on, got to tell you about our friends over at Body Spec. Look, if you've been listening to the show, you know the deal. Best way to start your fitness journey, get a DEXA scan from Body Spec. What's a DEXA scan? It's a highly accurate way to measure your body's composition. Body fat percentage is the famous one that we're always curious about. You hear about pro athletes. You getting ready for the combine, Tommy? You getting ready for the NFL combine? Like the ultimate, just like this freak, 260 pounds, 6% body fat. Newsflash, that's not me. But it's okay. I'm not aiming to be that. I'm just trying to stay in good shape. I'm just trying to get my body under control. So the thing that really helped was I got a DEXA scan with Body Spec, found out my body fat percentage, lean muscle mass, visceral fat, stuff that is far more telling of your fitness than standing on the scale. And what is really cool about Body Spec is they will get you one for only $45 with the code LightYears45. Traditionally, a DEXA scan costs $200, $300, $500. It's not really accessible. They've really made it mass market accessible. Locations in San Francisco and LA, mobile vans that will come to you. That's Bodyspec.com bodyspec.com, light years 45. All right, let's get back to what we were talking about real quick. Apologies, guys, with the little technical difficulty there. But so, yeah, like we're looking at the standings here, and I want to pull this up before we get to the standings, but strength of schedule is probably, well, the number one reason I'm optimistic about the Warriors is Jimmy Butler. Like he kind of ignited, he's I think most of the issues with this team, which was they needed a true, you see how Steph and Draymond responded. Like we've already talked about all that stuff. The second reason to be really optimistic is the schedule plays in their favor down the stretch. So as of right now, they have the 22nd strength of schedule, which is what they need to kind of climb out of, what are they, like 3 games out of being out of the plan at this point, something like that. Yep. They could use a little bit more of a favorable schedule. You look above them, the Kings, who they're tied with and play Friday, they have the second hardest strength of schedule. They also traded De'Aaron Fox. In theory, the Warriors are in better position than them. The Phoenix Suns, who do not look like they're trending in a positive direction right now, have the hardest strength of schedule.
Clippers at 5.
The Clippers are a big one at 5. One minor injury to Kawhi or Harden in their schedule, and I could easily see them being in that mix with the Warriors. The Lakers at 6. Honestly, Lakers have had a phenomenal first half, but this is a different Lakers team. I don't really know what to expect. Like, I would do the Luka trade 10 out of 10 times, but would it shock you if they got worse in the second half of the season because of that trade?
No, it wouldn't. I mean, that's obviously it's a forward-looking move. Like, you're trading 31-year-old Anthony Davis for 25-year-old Luka Doncic, and Luka's perennial MVP candidate. AD's obviously an amazing player, has given the Warriors a lot of issues over the years, but at the same time, their team isn't built for Luka Doncic right now. It's just not. Like there was a reason they tried to trade for Mark Williams immediately because they wanted a lob-catching center. And that trade obviously didn't go through. So they'll obviously be a major buyout candidate, but they'll be I think they're going to have some nights where it doesn't look great, even though the offense might be really good. But I think your general point is here, like in terms of just the remaining schedule, the Warriors are positioned very well. Like, so the Kings right above them have second toughest strength of schedule. Mavs were just above them. I think Minnesota's schedule isn't too tough, but the one nice thing about Minnesota right now is the Warriors actually have that tiebreaker. They beat them 2 out of 3 times this year. So if you end the season tied, you get that tiebreaker. And I think that's really the only tiebreaker they can still really hold. They might be able to get the Mavs, but that's going to come down to like the second or third tiebreaker, whatever that is. Clippers already beat them twice. So they're in a tough position. Those teams are probably going to have to pass them to vault above them in the standings. But they're positioned well.
Let's just table set here. So, like, how high can they get? Like, let's just, they're not going to catch the top 4. It's just record-wise, it's highly unlikely. Like, the Thunder for sure. But Grizzlies, Nuggets, and I'm going to throw the Rockets in there. It feels like too many games for the Warriors to catch them. Although, in theory, the Rockets aren't really that far ahead. But let's just say that. They're probably not going to catch any of those teams. And realistically, like, even though Lakers at 5, like, that's 7 games. It's only 5 games total, but it's 7 in the loss column.
Yep,
unrealistic. Beyond that, I think everything else is in play. And to your point, Minnesota is the only team in that like 5 to 10 range above them that has a more cake schedule than them down the stretch. How high can the Warriors actually get?
I think they can get to 6. I think that would be really tough. And I know that's the stated goal by Steve. I think it's achievable. But again, you're looking at a Clippers team right now that has 23 losses, that's been playing really good basketball. You would essentially have to bank on a 2 or 3 week Kawhi or Harden injury, I think, for that to happen. I mean, maybe not. Maybe they just start to slide. They don't play good basketball, but they've been playing really well. They look really good, in my opinion. But everybody else, like the 7 feels incredibly achievable. You're only 2 back in the loss column, and like I said, you own that tiebreaker against the Timberwolves right now. So in the event that you end up tied, you both end up with, let's say, 48-32, whatever it might be, or whatever the final or 48-34, I guess it would technically be. Warriors would get that tiebreaker. So and the Kings and the Mavs, you come out of the break and you play both of those teams like immediately. Those are your first 2 games out of the All-Star break here. So if you can get those 2 wins, you're basically immediately in 8th, more or less. And then it's just a matter of jogging between 8th and 7th. But I think the biggest thing is you need to get to that 8-7 line to feel any type of confidence about where you can go on the playoffs. Because having to play 2 playing games, even if you win both, you're now approaching that first playoff series with a day, maybe 2 days of rest. And with an older team, you kind of need at least, I think, 3 or 4 days physical reset, obviously, but the mental reset as well. Like, you're going to need that. So I think the goal should be to get to 7 or 8. But if you can get to 6, obviously, go do it. But that feels not unrealistic, but that feels very difficult. 7 feels like you can do it very realistically.
Of the young guys, you already mentioned Kuminga. Who do you think is going to actually be the largest contributor down the stretch?
Are we counting Kuminga in this conversation, or are we saying outside of him?
No, you can count him in the conversation. You called him, to be clear, like the biggest X factor.
Yeah.
And a lot of that's just because, quite frankly, he hasn't played since Jimmy came. So he gives them size and athleticism that they desperately need. Like, look, I don't need to explain to people why it's important that we see Kuminga with this, but like it does. And there is the added allure of like, we just haven't seen it since we got Jimmy.
I mean, I think just judging by what we've seen so far, I think it'll probably be pods. I think there's definitely going to be, in my opinion, there's going to be some little rough patches reintegrating Kuminga. I've touched on it before, but him and Jimmy playing a lot of the same spots. He's not going to be doing, I wouldn't assume there's too much on-ball creation from Kuminga outside of like some second unit minutes. You know what I mean? Like that's really probably the only time he's going to be controlling the ball in any way, shape, or form. So I do think it'll probably be pods, but what I would want to see in a perfect world is like you start to peak at the right time, right? Like kind of mid-March through April, like Kuminga really starts to figure it out. Like he's fully back healthy. Because I mean, you know, he's still battling this ankle sprain. So it's obviously a pretty serious injury as far as ankle sprains go. And that's just conjecture. I haven't heard anything, but yeah, I mean, I think it'll be pods just because he's already been playing well and he's already shown that he fits with Jimmy very well. So I would assume it's him going down the stretch of the season.
I also throw Moody in there. Moody's played. This is the best stretch of basketball I've seen from Moses Moody. Absolutely. He's had games like what we've seen recently, but he has not had 20 straight games, which is kind of what he's on right now, which is just like very consistent. The energy's that like, well, the energy's pretty much always been there, but like controlled energy, playing smart, you know, understanding his role. I think he might be the biggest beneficiary from Jimmy to date, just because like he probably shouldn't be a decision maker on ball, and just by virtue of not having a secondary creator, he among a bunch of other guys ends up doing it when they shouldn't. So yeah, no, I think the lineup I'm also most curious to see is like, what does it look like when you have Kuminga with Draymond and Jimmy? Because I think if you got them like truth serum, they want that lineup to be the closing lineup. Does not mean it will be, but I think in a perfect world, that's kind of the small ball lineup you're closing with, those 3 guys in the front court, right? But like, does it work offensively? Is there enough shooting? Can they make up for the fact that none of those guys are going to get guarded if they're standing in the corner, you know?
And I think that's why I called them the X factor is Kuminga now, because if they want to go where they're saying they're going to go, where Draymond's saying they're going to go, it has to be Kuminga. Kuminga has to be closing games for the most part. And like every once in a while, it'll probably be Looney, or you know what I mean? Like you'll have those random nights where it's somebody else. But I think in general, it kind of does have to be Kuminga. And the only way those 3, Kuminga, Jimmy, and Draymond, would be workable without Draymond playing the 5, playing post at center. And if you're doing that, then I probably don't feel confident. That's not a realistic or reasonable option, like on a consistent basis. So you're probably looking at those 3, Steph and either Moody or Podziemski for the most part.
I mean, I think Steve feels confident closing right now with Steph, Pods, Jimmy, Moody, Draymond.
Yeah.
As his best lineup. And I'm like, here's my hot take. If they avoid Denver, I'm not convinced they can't close with that versus most of the teams in the path they're going to face. Like, I don't think that's a problematic lineup versus the Thunder. The Thunder play like Jalen Williams and Lou Dort at the 4, you know? Like, it's not a size issue with the Thunder. You know, it's like a strength issue. Obviously, you'd like to get Kuminga in there, but like, you don't need him if it's not going to work, type of thing. I'd say the same with the Rockets. Who do the Rockets play at the 4? Amen.
Yeah, Jabari,
Dylan Brooks.
Jabari, if he's healthy. Yeah, it's nobody
Yeah,
like that's big and strong.
Again, they're more like stocky 6'5" guys.
Yeah.
Than like the Nuggets are a real problem because Aaron Gordon and Jokic. Like you can't go that small against those two guys. You need someone with like some semblance of positional size against those guys, right? So but against every other team, I'm not convinced. Like even the Grizzlies, like Jaren's obviously great, but who are they going to play next to him when you get into kind of a small ball running situation?
Yeah, I mean, they're obviously, if they put Jaren at the 4, you're closing with Zach Edey. Good luck. I mean,
So they're not. That's my
Yeah,
point.
right.
That'll be off the floor.
Right.
Jaren will be at the 5. Obviously, you got Ja. You got Desmond Bain.
I mean,
maybe Jalen Wells.
Yeah,
like
that's who it's kind of been. It's been Jalen Wells, and like they moved LaRavia, who I thought was giving them good minutes, and I would have maybe kind of picked him to close as their 4 in certain instances. But yeah, I mean, I guess you are right. Do you think the ceiling is high enough for that Steph, Pods, Moody, Jimmy, Draymond group if Kuminga isn't consistently good enough to close games?
No, I think you need to be able. I think they need Kuminga contributing. I think they need Looney in the rotation. I think they need 8 guys, and you kind of like Steph, Draymond, and Jimmy are going to be out there when it matters. But then you're mixing and matching around them. Maybe even GP2 gets in there a little bit, right? Like that sort of thing. But I'm just pointing out, like you look at the teams in the West, and Denver, legitimate problem. I'd also say if the Luka LeBron thing works and they get away with no center, also a bit of a problem to not have another big wing out there. Maybe the Clippers also would be a problem if you can get it. But like a lot of the teams in this West, like it would be better to have Kuminga. But if he's like the injury sets him back and it doesn't work, like I don't know, man. There's a lot of matchups here that I think you can get away with that Moody and Pods as the other 2 guys lineup, which is it sounds insane, but like that's another reason I feel pretty optimistic about this. Like I'm just looking at the West and I'm like, it's so many good teams, but good. Emphasis on the word good, like not like, oh fuck, this is 2017 Warriors or something like that, where it's like, I don't know, like we need everything to go right.
Mm-hmm. No, 100%. And I think maybe one of the more interesting things to see coming out of the break is like, it's not like Jimmy hasn't been scoring at a good rate since coming over, but he hasn't been like super, super aggressive offensively, right? And I am kind of interested to see what kind of level he can get to again as a shot creator. Is it the same level he was at 2 years ago with the Heat, or is it a little bit less than that? And if it is a little bit less than that, is that enough to win multiple playoff series over the next couple months if they get there?
Yeah. I mean, he is objectively the best playmaker they've had since Kevin Durant.
Yeah.
Just in terms of like ability to leverage scoring and making plays for others, like outside of Steph, of course. But he's better than Jordan. He's better than Clay at that. He's better than Wiggins at that. Like, and I wouldn't call any of those guys like.
And it's tiers better, to be clear. It's not just
wing playmakers. Yeah,
he's way better at it than any of those guys.
Yeah, I mean he's more likely to get you a 20-point triple-double than go for 50. So, whereas I'd say guys like, the 3 I mentioned, they're more likely to get like hit 9 threes, score 45, 4 and 4, like that type of thing, right? So it's a different type of player. So there is like the point to be made that like Jimmy's bringing out a little more scoring in Moses Moody, which like Clay or Jordan Poole or Wiggins would never do, right? And hopefully he does the same thing with Kuminga. Like that's actually the really exciting part about it. Like, what if the space? Everyone always points to the spacing, but what if what Kuminga really needs is just to never dribble the ball? Like, not have to. Like, you have 3 geniuses around you, and you're just the guy who is finishing everything. The game ends with him. He's 18 points, 8 for 10. Like that type of like.
Right.
You're just like, and they need that because I don't think Jimmy wants to be getting to the line 15 times a game all season, not with age and like, wear and tear on the joints and that sort of thing. And like the same with Steph too. Like as amazing as he is, there's a difference between I need to win and I'm going to go to the cup if I have to, Steph, and it's Tuesday, I'm just going to start chucking some shots, Steph, like they could really use Kuminga to just be a guy who can literally like carry the ball, like a bell cow back, like that type of thing.
Big Ten football. I guess that's what we're playing.
Exactly.
Saquon,
get it? No.
I think it's a good point, though.
Player, but yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And I think Andy and I touched on that a little bit last time we potted. But yeah, I mean, essentially what you're saying is he becomes like some version of Aaron Gordon for them. And he's not as big or as strong as AG is, but just in terms of like the play style, like cutting on the backside, finding open spots, obviously hitting the occasional open three. But realistically, what he's doing is he's playing kind of off the movement and the creation of Steph and Jimmy. And he's just getting easy layup dunks, like little, cuts for 5-footers, stuff like that. And that would obviously be the best version of him with this team. And if he can achieve that on a consistent basis, I think the ceiling goes way, way up for this team.
Or like stylistically not the same, but like Siakam on the 19 Raptors before he turned into like an on-ball creator per se. Like he always had the spin move. That's always been there, right? That's like been his thing. But like he was very much he was playing off of Kawhi, Lowry, and like these more established guys, and he'd pop up with a 30-point game. He'd pop up with a 25-point game as kind of a more refined Aaron Gordon. That was like kind of his role at that point, right? So I guess I'm just saying the same thing as you just, but yeah. That actually honestly might be where he lands, where, that's the role he plays, and he has the opportunity to expand off of it, because let's be real, every one of the vets that we're talking about this team would happily allow him to carry the load in the regular season. Like they want that. Jimmy wants to average 17, 18 in the regular season. He wants to just like chill, make some winning plays, go like 17, 5-5. And then when he needs to pick his spots, pick his spots.
Yeah. And I think that's actually kind of the coolest thing about this Steph Jimmy combo potentially, is like they are two of the like the stars / superstars who like genuinely don't care how much they score. If they have to go do it, they will. But like it's not their like number one or even number two priorities. Like, oh, like I got to get my shots, I got to get my buckets. Steph is totally content taking 10 shots if the offense is good and like they're generating good looks consistently and they're winning. Like he doesn't care. And like you're saying, Jimmy doesn't either. Like Jimmy will have games where he shoots the ball 12 times if they win. If you're winning.
No, they're like honestly like just trying to problem solve how to win, and Steph will go through sometimes annoyingly long periods where he's just like setting screens for other guys to get going. But like the flip side of it is, man, I'm old. If we can win a handful of games without me having to like throw my body on the floor 100 times, like I'm down, that sort of thing. And that's kind of where I feel like him and Jimmy are the most similar. They're just trying to figure out like how can we get out of tonight with a win without like tearing my ligaments.
Yeah. And I think problem solving is the perfect way to put it. They're constantly trying to problem solve, and so is Draymond. And I think that's why this has a chance to be like an incredible partnership. And it's like it's reason for so much excitement, because you can picture it coming together. Like if Kuminga can really figure it out, and I keep going back to him, but if he can, I really think the calculus changes. And I think Siakam is that Siakam on that 2019 Raptors team is actually the perfect reference point, because he wasn't like amazing all final series, but he had 32 in game one. And then he had like 25 in the closeout game. And he was always there when they needed him to score, but it wasn't like he wasn't really ever like their
the X factor
option.
Like it really is the X factor. It's like, who was the team built around? Kyle Lowry, Kawhi. Honestly, Marc Gasol was probably more important. Like all these like veteran pieces who truly knew how to play basketball, but they needed someone who was a little more athletic, a little juice, who could just like, look, man, if you're gonna put that much attention, that guy's gonna get 25, 30 on you, and that really could be how it plays out with Kuminga. Like that's a best case scenario, but that's really how it could play out.
And that's how he was. I mean, even before Jimmy was here, obviously, that's how he was playing before he went down. Like he was scoring consistently and efficiently for like those last 15 games, and that was without like a true second creator, like playmaker. It was just Steph, and he was actually doing a lot of creation. So you would hope, and it would make some sense that if you take some of that pressure off him and he can just score, like it should look really good. But I'm excited to see all of it, man. I really am. It's Like we
We're
said at the
back.
beginning, it is the most excited I've been about Warriors basketball in so long, like a couple years, genuinely.
No, I'm hyped too. All right. Appreciate it, everyone.